Okay, in this module, we'll be looking at susceptibility to phishing. The accompanying reading is by Ross Anderson, his chapter on psychology and usability, so make sure you read that as well. Okay, so phishing falls under the realm of what is called social engineering, which refers to the act of compromising a security system by exploiting the vulnerabilities in the human interface. In essence, you're exploiting the weakest link in the security system, the user. The practice of social engineering breaks down into two basic psychological processes: deception, okay, deceiving the user, okay, and then manipulating the user into doing something that the attacker wants them to do. The sophisticated social engineering message, the sophisticated phishing message, will sort of couple these two processes. If they're successful in deceiving the recipient, or the user, manipulation will follow almost automatically. So some of the effective messages we'll be looking at sort of combine deception and manipulation. Once deception occurs, the user is manipulated into the desired act almost automatically. All right, so Anderson in his chapter talks a lot about deception and makes the point that deception is now the greatest threat to online security. The beginning part of his chapter talks a lot about pretexting, and this is how you can pull information or get information or dupe users into providing information under a false pretext. Talks at some fascinating examples that have attackers have used by contacting companies via phone. And so it doesn't necessarily, pretexting doesn't necessarily have to occur over the internet. Some of the most successful has actually been with actual contact with organizations, by contacting them, posing as somebody else, and getting them to divulge information over the phone that then can be used to get into organization systems. The deception often capitalizes on mistakes that stem from inappropriate rule following. Okay. Now rule following isn't necessarily rules and regulations, but just we have mental rules for how to conduct tasks, such that when X occurs, I do Y. These are simple, what we would call schemas that people use, to help them navigate their environments, and that cues occur and certain actions follow. So deception often involves tricking people into following a well-formed schema or rule. Such as clicking on links for impersonated administrators or banks. We're used to getting messages from administrators to do this, so we automatically do this and follow it. Okay, so phishing is sort of online pretexting. Takes advantage of deception. In sort of a definition of it is that when an attacker attempts to fraudulently acquire sensitive information from a target by impersonating a trustworthy third party, whether it's PayPal, your bank, a supposed friend. The latest one that has become popular in the last couple of years is your friend who's stranded someplace in Europe and can't get access to money, and is pleading that if you can just help him temporarily, he'll pay you back. And what makes this attempt so effective is that somehow it's from someone in your mailbox, someone that you actually know. When I was chair of psychology, for example, a professor emeritus who was liked by everybody and known by everybody, and someone hacked into his account and sent the message that he was stranded in Scotland, and everybody, all the faculty member came, come to my office and said that, look, Professor X is stranded. We need to help him. And I said, no, this is not an accurate email. So these are, again, they're attempts that impersonate a trustworthy third party. Often, what these attackers want is a password. Okay. So that the pretexting that they're using is to get access to sensitive information, and typically it's a password. Also, the phishing, effective phishing, capitalizes on the unsafe actions of consumers. In particular, they're trying to con recipients into clicking on a web link that will actually then be a false or pretense a website that will collect the information and empty your bank account. It redirects people to a bogus trusted path. Early phishing attempts didn't work that well because the grammar was awful and people could readily ascertain that this was not a real or trusted email. Anderson's chapter details how banks, will basically train consumers to act in unsafe ways. It's not wise to click on links within emails. Okay, that's what the phisher relies on. Okay, but marketing departments at banks constantly send messages to customers that have links embedded in them. So they're basically training their customers to click on links in emails, which is what the phisher takes advantage of. Here's an actual phishing message that was sent to UAlbany employees a couple years ago. Note it contains many of the features of today's sophisticated email, phishing email. It reuses a genuine email address. Administrator at uamail.albany.edu is actual email address back then before we got rid of the UA mail system. All right, so phishing emails will use what looks like a genuine PayPal or Citibank address, for example. The only thing that is different, if you sometimes hover over the link, you can actually tell that it's not going to the URL as opposed to, but to a different URL. By the way, sophisticated phishers have caught up with that, and now they can actually mask that as well. Also note the spelling and grammar are correct. That was, again, used to be the biggest telltale sign that it was fraudulent. It also follows a typical template for an official email. And this looks pretty accurate, looks pretty official. And so a lot of Albany employees at the time were fooled. If recipients actually click the link, which we've pretty much been trained to do, then they will be taken to a false website and potentially enter sensitive information. What we should be doing as recipients of emails is that we should never click on the links in emails, but we should actually just type in the URL or use a bookmark site for, say, our bank or PayPal or whatever. But that takes too much effort. We all just go ahead and click on the links in the email instead. Oops. Oh my gosh, I just clicked on the link by accident. See how easy it is? Let me get back to my email. Good, there's a good lesson in all of this. Don't click on the links. All right. Here are some phishing tactics. Okay. I'm going to a little more detail or depth, more examples than Anderson might give in his chapter. The typical one of the typical tactics is just to make the person believe that the phisher is somebody else. Here's eBay message. Okay, this looks great. Okay, and we all have gotten these. Please verify your eBay identity or PayPal identity or your bank identity. The message looks pretty accurate. Okay, I mean it looks pretty official. Okay, and so we're induced into at least clicking the learn more link. There's also what I would call the Trojan horse. Disguise malware as something that's desirable. Here's some free music, an e-card, a game, etc. This is yours for free. Okay, but it's a Trojan horse. Hidden inside that nice little gift is something that is evil. Okay, in this case, malware that'll take over your computer. So those are two examples. So some general principles that phishing attempts follow. Okay, is that it tries to take advantage of your needs and desires. Okay, so your needs and desires are what makes you vulnerable. Phishing attempts are successful once they figure out what you want. Okay. Also, when you're under time pressure to act or decide, or you're quick thinking mode, such as the email message may say, "This is urgent. You have to act quickly." Okay, so quick thinking mode. You use different decision-making strategies. You're going to use what is called the peripheral route to persuasion, Okay, or what we've been calling System 1 thinking. Okay, System 1 thinking is very susceptible to manipulation. Okay, and sophisticated phishers know this. Okay, so they want to put you under time pressure to act, or to put you into a quick thinking mode. Okay, so taking advantage of needs and desires, that's the motivational route. The second one is sort of the cognitive route, get you to rely on System 1 thinking. So let's look at some of these. Let's start with the needs and desires principle. Okay, um, people have many different needs and desires. Let's face it, the sex is one of them. Okay, if the statistics are true, and I've pulled them from this infographic on the right-hand side of the screen here, with the source at the bottom. If these statistics are true, and to be honest, I didn't do a lot of researching to figure out how accurate the research done by CNET.com is, but according to this infographic, 40 million Americans regularly visit porn sites. 12% of websites and 25% of searches on the internet are pornographic, and at any second there's over 25,000 viewers of pornographic material. So the proliferation of porn sites makes it easy for phishers. Here's one anonymous attacker, quote, I just sent an email to work addresses offering access to free porn site. You require registration and password. Most people use one password for all accounts. Bingo, you have access. Okay, sort of a little scary thought there, a scary statement. Hopefully that it's not that easy, but clearly this is one need or desire that can be manipulated by sophisticated phishers. Other needs and desires, and hopefully you note the links back to the universal drives that I exposed you to back in the Psych 101 overview on motivation. Another need and desire is greed. Okay, the infamous Nigerian letter scam shows how people can be deceived by the desire for money. Okay, I often wondered that how people fell for that, but enough people do that it was quite successful. And here's another one, another more modern or updated variant of the Nigerian letter scheme. Basically asking for assistance in the transfer of funds. Fear is another basic human motive that can be easily tapped into and taken advantage of in phishing attempts. Fear registers very quickly and powerfully in the brain. So a common phishing tactic is to invoke a sense of urgency in the fear recipients, such as the Citibank email says, quickly, we need to verify something. There's been an attack on an account, so we need to safeguard your attack. Please click on this link to confirm your Citibank account details. Okay, well, guess what? That link does not take you to Citibank.com. It takes you someplace else. Okay, but again, note is getting people to act quickly, urgent, quick thinking, which is System 1, which can be manipulated. Curiosity is another, basic drive motive in people. We're innately curious about things. This is a study done at the University of Indiana. Something as simple as, hey, check this out, was a surprisingly effective technique. 70% of students who were just sent an email saying, hey, check this out, with an accompanying link, clicked on it. Okay, now it was a study that took them to a fake phishing site and not real one, but the fact of the matter is that 70% of students at Indiana University clicked the link that said, hey, check this out. Especially now, think of it, especially if you can send a link from a known person. Okay, if hacking into email or contacts and send an email from a known person, say, hey, check this out. Well, that number, 70%, would probably go up even more. Affiliation is another, basic human motive, reflecting social needs. There's invitations sent to join social organizations. This is an actual one, the college collaborative network, Great Danes. This is a phishing email that was sent to UAlbany students saying, hey, join this Facebook group, when in fact it was not a Facebook group. The hope here is that the password that they're going to enter is their Facebook password or some other common password that can be used to get sensitive information or money. All right, so those are taking advantage of the common motives in people. There's also the cognitive route that I mentioned before, taking advantage of heuristic thinking. And this sort of relates to the notion that there are two routes to persuasion. If you're trying to persuade people to do something, one route relies on deliberative processing of information, and then there's one that relies on quick or automatic processing of information. And it's the latter that phishing attempts try to take advantage of. Okay, so phishing works by getting people to rely on heuristics and push or nudge users without provoking excessive thought. This relies on system one thinking and peripheral routes of persuasion. In the attitude, behavior literature, there's a distinction made between the central route to persuasion and the peripheral route to persuasion. The central route relies on logical, rational analysis that involves elaboration of information and arguments. This is what we've been calling system two thinking during this course. The peripheral route relies on cues and mental shortcuts that bypass logical counter-argumentation. Okay, so it's the system one thinking, relying on the heuristics or schemas or well-developed habits to act. Right, so peripheral changes are temporary. Okay, if you in the literature, in the social psych literature, if you're really trying to change attitudes in the long term, you have to go the central route. But if you want quick change, albeit temporary change, the peripheral route works. But think about it, scam artists, they don't care about long-term change. They only need to affect change temporarily. So the peripheral route is what they will rely on. This is the elaboration likelihood model of persuasion by Petty and Cassiopeia. Very influential model, introduced way back in the 1980s, but has been shown to be valid and is accepted in the literature as a good explanation of persuasion. The message, the persuasion message can be crafted as such to activate the central route of persuasion, which is basically this top path up here, where people have the ability to think about the message or are highly motivated to think about the message and engage in deep processing, focus on the quality of the message arguments, and that produces lasting change that resists fading and counterattacks. So think about trying to persuade a person through logic and argumentation to see your side of a certain issue. Nuclear energy, for example, trying to get them to understand the advantages or disadvantages of it, whichever side you're arguing. The lower path here reflects the peripheral route to persuasion, which tries to get people to superficially process, focus on surface features of the communication, such as the communicator's attractiveness or the number of arguments being presented. This leads to temporary change that is susceptible to fading and counterattacks. But again, for phishing, it doesn't really matter. As long as you get the person to, if you persuade them to act quickly, you can get the information that you're looking for. All right, so what are the cues that trigger peripheral information processing? Well, let's look at them, and these, hopefully you'll see, will be 5 cues that are often used by successful or effective phishing messages. Authority is one. Okay, when an authoritative figure makes a request, we tend to respond to it. So bank officials, school administrators, those examples of emails I gave earlier, relying on authority. Scarcity and urgency, requiring quick action, triggers peripheral information processing. Similarity, okay, it's your friend, or it's another college student, someone similar to you, someone in your social network, is going to allow you to trust the email message more quickly and more rapidly. Reciprocation, okay, remember we talked about trust and reciprocation in social interaction. If someone does something for you, you're quickly to respond. Okay, so hey, here's a little free gift. Can we get something from you? Okay, so reciprocation triggers peripheral processing. And consistency is another one, getting people to act in consistent manners to do things that they've done in the past, relying on habit. Okay, so if you're asked for something that you habitually have done, okay, then you're more likely to do it. So phishing messages will incorporate cues that trigger peripheral processing of information and hence quick, not well thought out responses And they will rely on these 5 cues, or these 5 triggers. Primarily, the first 3, I would say, are the most common: authority, urgency, and similarity. So here's some of the key features in phishing attacks. The quality of the email argument, what's in the message, will emphasize things like critical events, something that's impactful, something that's urgent, some justification is given, and a response action is requested quickly. Again, these are all things related to schema-driven action or System 1 guided actions. The title of the email reinforces the quality, impact, urgency, or authority, the company name, the message appearance. It looks authentic. It has the email signature of a trusted organization, PayPal, your bank, etc. When you go to the website that you're linked to, again, there's sort of a consistent appearance theme. The company logo is the same. So again, it's sort of it keeps the schema-driven action going. No, these are mainly triggers for the peripheral route to persuasion, and what we've been calling System 1 or intuitive thinking. And I give you the source for this breakdown or this classification there. Okay, so that's a quick overview of some of the phishing literature or the features of phishing attempts. The next module in this unit, I'm going to present the results of a study that Professor Goyle and I did last year with phishing of UAlbany students. We'll confirm or give supporting evidence to some of the claims that I made here, in particular that messages crafted towards quick thinking, System 1 thinking, are effective, especially when they take advantage of people's loss aversion and fear of losing things. Make sure you read Anderson's chapter. Okay, gives a lot of useful insight into the usability and psychology issues. It also has a very nice section on passwords and people's tendencies towards developing passwords and use of their passwords. Okay, so visit the discussion boards for commentary on the Anderson chapter. Okay, thanks. Have a good day.